Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Peace and Purpose panel. I'm so excited to be here and moderate this timely and important discussion. My name is Julia Broglie, and I am a mental health advocate and the founder of Broglie Box. My company creates and ships care packages that focus on mental wellness and stress relief. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to introduce the panel, and then we're going to dive right in. Keep in mind, we will leave time at the end for questions, so either drop them in the chat box now or just start brainstorming as you think of questions. Just put them in the chat box. So first up, we have Pervis Taylor. Mental health expert Pervis Taylor is an award-winning celebrity life coach, an inspirational speaker, a mentor, and author of the book Survival Mode, whose true purpose in life is to help people. If you want to just give a wave, Pervis.
Hey, everybody.
We have Chirstensen. Brandon is the CEO of Modern Therapy, a talk therapy company working to make mental health care more accessible, more convenient, and less stigmatized.
Hey, everybody.
And then we have Raquel Perez, who is a BSN RN, and she is a medical surgical oncology nurse who, after graduating from the University of Rhode Island in 2017, took 4 attempts at passing her license exam, a challenge she often coaches nursing students through.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so let's get to the first question. So several studies and news outlets have reported increased levels of anxiety and depression in the general population since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. So for anyone struggling out there with their mental health directly related to the pandemic, and this remains completely out of their control, what advice would you give them? So let's start with Pervis.
That is an awesome question. The one thing I would say is focus on what's in your control, and that's you and how you show up in the world and how you respond or choose to react to certain situations. So the one thing I would focus on is the life that's happening from you. We can't control the life that's happening to us, but we can control the life that's happening from us. So focus on that. Focus on what you want to happen. Focus on what you want to create. Focus on the life that you want to have. And that will help you in this time of crisis.
I love that. It's so true. Raquel?
I would say this is the time to use your resources. Leaning on community is so incredibly important. As you mentioned in my opening, it took me a few times to become a registered nurse. And during that time, I felt pretty hopeless. I felt really lost and know what to do. And that's when I really honed in and relied on my community. I relied on friends and family members. And I think that we're kind of in a similar situation where you can't just rely on yourself. You have to really spread your resources out and hone in on those.
Yeah, I love that. Brandon?
Yeah, those are both great talking points, great advice. Kind of building on that, talking about things that we can control. I think it's really important just to give yourself compassion. One of the important things to realize is that the unique thing about this COVID event is that it's a shared experience amongst everybody in the world, right? So we're all going through something, and everybody's experiencing some sort of mental health symptoms. So having positive self-talk, giving yourself a break, I think is really important. And then, kind of building on that, doing things that we can control. I think there's really 2 key things that I think would go along well with that. Number one is you can control what content you're consuming, right? So one of the things that I did really early on in this pandemic was I noticed that I was checking the news like 10 to 20 times a day, if we're being honest. So I just deleted the news app off my phone. So now in order to check the news, I have to Google it. It's important to understand what's going on in the world and stay up to date, but at the same time, we can control that content that we're taking in. And I also think the other thing is that building a routine is really important. And, when everybody's just had this shared trauma where their whole life has been disrupted, it's really important to make sure that we know what we're going to do the next day and we have that routine. And that's really going to help keep us centered and keep our, minds healthy. So
I love that. So focus on community, focus on what's in your control, and maybe only check the news like once a day. Someone gave me that advice too at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's really helped me with my own mental health to just check in when on an as needed basis. And that's been game changer for me. So I love that. Thank you all for your perspectives. So based on your experience working in the mental health industry, what are the most effective ways to manage anxiety and depression and to fight stigma around these mental health challenges? So Brandon, actually, we're going to start with you.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I actually think those two things that I mentioned, you could write a whole book on this topic, but if we're talking about what can you do tomorrow, I think those are two really great things to start with. I want to kind of focus on the stigma piece of that because I think it's really important. And it's one of the things that we're trying to do in modern therapy, and pretty much everybody on this call is trying to do, is destigmatize mental health. For some reason, there's a stigma that comes along with mental health. And I find that almost kind of strange because if you look at the data, 1 out of every 2 people in the US, close to 1 out of every 2 people has worked with some sort of mental health professional or therapist. So most of us have worked with a mental health care professional, but yet there's still this kind of public stigma of like, you can't talk about it, So in clinical social work, there's a concept called person and environment where to sum up this theoretical perspective, basically it's that your symptoms and who you are as a result of your interactions with your environment. And there's 3 levels of an environment. There's, the micro level, which is your own self-talk. There's the friends and family that you're constantly communicating with. There's the meso level, which is your community, things like your school, your work colleagues, maybe your church that you attend. And then there's the macro level, which is policy, government initiatives, programs, things like that we all engage with and that affect, our well-being and our mental health. So I think talking about fighting stigma, you have to look at it from those 3 areas. And the best way to fight it on a personal level, change starts with us, right? So if we're having conversations with our circle of influence on mental health, maybe talking about our own mental health, talking about our own experiences with a therapist, just doing that naturally is going to destigmatize mental health. At a community meso level, getting involved in walks, getting involved in advocacy events, I think is a really big key thing. And those can even be done virtually right now, even just taking part in this panel, everybody listening. And that's something you can do to destigmatize mental health and tell your friends about that. And then finally, on the macro level, we don't have to have lunch with senators or be connected to congressmen to lobby for mental health change, right? Change.org is a great website. For those of you who haven't heard of it, it's just basically like a petition website where you can go on and you can search for things that you care about and sign petitions. And those people then take those petitions and lobby for you on your behalf. So you can even support those causes virtually, through something like that.
I love that. It's like, you don't have to be an influencer to have influence, right?
Yeah,
like we all can contribute to fighting stigma. So Raquel, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so working with women who have cancer, a lot of times I do come across, them having anxiety and depression because of what they're going through, or even just my own experiences with it because I'm a nurse and on that floor, and my colleagues too. And what I know works for me is just talking about it. Of course, that's not something that's going to work for everyone. Seeing a therapist might not work for everybody. But I do think one of the easiest ways is to be able to rely on colleagues, on friends and family, if you don't feel like seeing a professional therapist is what you need in that moment. Practicing de-escalation methods, making sure that you're getting your resources. I'm a huge advocate for relying on what you have available to you. And luckily in the hospital I work at, we provide that for our patients. And if in the moment we can't be there for them at the hospital, then we refer them out. So there's always that channel of networking. So talking it out, finding your networking resources and what works for you, because there is no one answer. It's really personal.
That's so true. Everyone's unique and not everyone has access to a mental health professional. So relying on your immediate network, I think, is so important. I love that insight. Pervis?
I love this question. One of the things I say to my clients often is that no one is born ill-equipped, they're just born ill-informed. And it is my job to inform you that you have everything you need to make it through the depression and the anxiety, and really being able to talk about it. Like, we have to be comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations. That has to become the new norm. And as everyone so put, psychology and mental health is not an exact science. So other modalities that work, such as lived experience groups, that have proven to be just as successful as traditional therapy. So finding out ways, getting creative with ways that you want to cope, right, with it, that's healthy, right? So whether it be you can create a blog, whether it's that you join a group of people who are dealing with anxiety right now during this time and just being able to talk about it. But the one thing I think is important is that we have everything we need to make it through this. So it first begins with that root foundation that you have the tools, you have everything you need to make it through it. And that's where I think that's where I think changing the narrative around it begins. It begins with self and knowing that I have everything I need to make it through this.
I love that. It's a mindset shift, right? To just know that you actually you're capable of getting through it, and you have all of these tools available to you. It's finding them that can be difficult, but that's why people like us are here to help you find the tool and to know that you have it inside of you. I love that. Thank you. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, what are some ways that you personally have tried to stay centered and grounded during the pandemic? So let's start with you, Raquel.
My favorite way so far is waking up every day and writing something that I'm grateful for. And just that 5 minutes where I spend with myself. I'm usually, in a quiet space and it's peaceful, but writing down what I have in the moment in that day, my first one is health, especially now with COVID. I'm just very thankful and grateful to be healthy. That shift in perspective starting the day really makes everything else seem minuscule that it might not have been before. And that has been my best way of coping through all of the craziness that this year has brought. There's been so much grief that our country has gone through collectively, that the world has gone through. And I think it's important to stay centered and recognize what you have in your own moment. So I use that method. I also do journal besides just writing down like bullet points of things that I'm grateful for. And again, I do spend a lot of time like talking to people how I'm feeling emotionally, but I will say writing it down has really been a great way to get through it.
I love that. I actually have a gratitude jar where I put all my gratitudes in every day. Pervis, what about you?
So I'm like, I say I'm bi-vegan. So like during the week, I eat vegan, and then on the weekend, I eat whatever I want to eat. I, diet, drinking lots of water, spending time in prayer, doing TikTok videos, having fun, just dancing, you know what I mean? Just being fun and silly and being in tune with that, the child within me, and watching mindless TV. So I watch a lot of SpongeBob. I watch Family Guy. I binge watch that on Hulu. So I'm doing a myriad of things. Also in helping with clients, I often say that when I work with my clients, it's also healing for me as well. So working with clients, giving talks like this, all those things collectively have been helping me to manage during this time.
I love that. Definitely listening to your inner child, and everyone is different. So what might resonate with you on how to stay grounded is going to be different from your friends. So just figuring out what that is so important.
Exactly.
What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, Pervis, those are all great points. Having fun is really important. I think incorporating self-care into your life is key. Like right now during this time, we have to take care of ourselves. And a lot of people think self-care, it's kind of like a buzzword, though, self-care, but it's not just like indulging in like a cheat meal or something like that. Self-care is doing things that promote ongoing well-being physically and mentally, right? So, and self-care can be things that people don't even realize that are common to, self-care, such as like creating a budget, right? Financially, a lot of people have been impacted through this. So creating a budget or doing something like that, you're eliminating a source of stress if you know where your money's going and you're not allowing that to kind of take over your mental space. Practicing getting educated surrounding the virus is one of the things that I've done. I think that fear comes from the unknown, right? So if we can arm ourselves with the tools and with education so that we learn a little bit more about how to protect ourselves, about what causes, spreading, and not aside from the virus, education can help when you're faced with any type of challenge. So that's one of the things that I've been practicing, and it's been really helpful.
I love that. Yeah, this is the Be Fearless Summit. So sometimes it's just about getting the right education so that you feel equipped to face whatever challenge comes your way. Okay, so I love this next question because a lot of people tuning in are in this pivotal moment in their life, either in college or in school, and they're trying to figure out what they want to do and what their purpose is. So how do you think mental health plays a role in figuring out what your purpose in your personal and professional lives? So we'll start with you, Pervis.
That's a obvious question. Mental health affects everything that we do. And I always tell my clients, and I know this to be true for myself, is that clarity precedes a breakthrough, right? And so it's not until you get clarity are you able to see to be able to see what the next steps are, what's possible for you. So the only way to get clarity is to be able to process and deal with our mental health, right? And I think another thing too is that we have to look at mental health in terms of maintenance and wellness rather than illness, and that's something's wrong, right? I think we need to reframe that. So you go to the doctor because you want to maintain your physical health, right? We go to the gym for the same reason. It's the same thing with our mental health. It's for maintenance and for wellness. And so I think the only way to be a success and understand purpose in life is to have clarity. And the only way to get clarity is to deal with our mental health. And circling back to what Brandon said, and we have to do this all with compassion and self-grace.
I love that. Most people think it's like perfectly well or mentally ill, but actually you're always in this spectrum, right?
Yes.
You maintain it every single day. So what about you, Brandon? What do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, that's super important. Purpose is like a monster of a topic. It's so important. Some people spend their whole lives finding out what their purpose is and what their calling is. And it's really easy to look at other people who may have found it and just kind of feel like, oh man, I wish that I kind of could find my purpose, but you can't really get caught up in that. Purpose is kind of like a double-edged sword, and mental health is really kind of tied into it. There's kind of like an inverse relationship, I think. We struggle to find our purpose without having mental clarity, kind of like you were saying, Pervis. Yet when we aren't functioning in our purpose or our calling, it causes mental health problems. If you've ever been stuck in some sort of like job or place where you just wouldn't want to be, it's grueling, it's terrible. And that causes its own kind of set of mental health struggles. So I think that really just working on that mental health and making that a priority before finding your purpose or finding your calling is essential to kind of going down that path.
I love that. What about you, Raquel?
Yeah, I totally agree with my panelists. It affects everything, mental health, and if you're not happy personally and professionally, it's just going to show through. I do think that this year, because of the pandemic, oddly, there's almost like a silver lining where so much has been paused that we have this chance to really reflect and to sit and think. And so I know myself, because of this year, I've processed where I'm at in my life personally, where I'm at professionally, and gotten the chance to kind of be still with that and really look at choices that I have moving forward and where I want to go. Am I happy at my job? Am I happy with this XYZ? And so I've gotten the chance to really digest everything and make a transition if I want to. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat because so much has been paused. So I would say to anybody that's struggling with finding their purpose now, especially, to kind of take advantage of the fact that we are in such a unique situation where we have the time to kind of sit and reflect and make decisions and to figure out, like, are you happy where you're at, and then move forward from there.
It's so true. Now we have the time and we're kind of alone with ourselves in quarantine. So kind of shifting that mindset and taking advantage of that time to really figure out what's next for you is so important. Okay, so now we have about 10 minutes left. I'm gonna read a couple questions that we have from the audience. Okay, question for the panel. As mental health experts, how do you balance your roles or educator, personal activists in your communities, and your professional network? So how do you balance all of these different roles that you have? So like education, personal activists, professional work. So we'll start with Brandon.
Yeah, it comes down to time management. Right now, like in addition to Modern Therapy, I also run another company. I'm in a full-time master's program. And then all at the same time, we're always trying to develop ourselves and do things like this. And everybody has a lot going on. You have to get really good at managing time. And that really goes back to, getting into a schedule and doing that schedule in the same way, in a set way every week. And I'm really harping on that because it's the single most important thing that has impacted my ability to just increase capacity to do all these things. So if you're not in a schedule, you should definitely consider mapping one out and sticking to it. It's easier said than done sometimes, but when it's done effectively, it can be a game changer.
I couldn't agree more. Time blocking has saved my life. Raquel, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, time management, man, I still to this day struggle with it. I'll be very honest. I think I've gotten a lot better at really committing to things that I'm passionate about, and then anything else, just letting it fall or just letting it be. I used to be the person, I'm very involved in my community and I love being involved and engaged. And I used to be the type of person that would say yes to everything. And now I've learned that, maintaining my personal peace is so important. And in order to do that, I just follow what I'm super passionate about and go with that. And like I said, let everything else just fall where it may.
I love that. Perfect.
Raquel, I just want to jump in real quick. I hope you don't mind, and just say, like, I read a quote the other day kind of in regards to that. And the story was basically the key to juggling is to realize that some balls are made of glass and some balls are made of plastic. Right. And just knowing which balls you can drop is sometimes the way. If you drop a plastic ball, it's going to cause less damage than if you drop a glass one. So
exactly.
That's true. To echo what Raquel just said, I've gotten very comfortable with the word no. Because I'm a person who likes to help so many people, and I love to, I love what I do, right? So all the aspects of me. But one thing I want to say is focus on quality versus quantity. So if I devote 10 minutes to something, it's more important than me trying to make time for an hour when I'm like trying to figure out what it is I'm trying to do with that, right? So as things come, being balanced is the key to life, but I focus more on quality. So if I have 10 minutes to devote with full passion to something, I'm going to do that rather than try to create an hour and I'm trying to conjure up something within me that's not really there. So I say focus on quality versus quantity.
I love that. Yeah. For me, it's like, okay, what's my number one priority? And then every single thing that comes up as a task, I ask myself, does this, if I go and I work on that one thing, is it meeting my priority? And then it really helps figure out like, okay, which way to go. Okay. Another question. How does research dissemination fit into your work with clients and patients? So Raquel, do you want to start with that one?
Ooh, that one, I'm going to defer to my other panelists because they have a little more experience with that. So I'll let them talk first and then I'll think on mine.
Okay. Brandon, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I think that there's set coping skills and strategies that are just clinically proven to help, when you're dealing with certain things. Just like one of them, kind of like I'll just talk about real quick. Like the concept of like radical acceptance is one that I think is very applicable to everything that we're going through right now. And radical acceptance, the goal of it is to, prevent pain from becoming suffering. And it's a pretty simple concept at its root, but basically it's just accepting fully 100% the circumstances around you. And then instead of dwelling on what you can change and what you're being faced with, you can then move on and find peace and healing through a radical level of acceptance. So like little things like that, are great tactics and tools that have just clinically been shown to be effective. You don't even need to be working with a therapist for them to teach you those coping skills and strategies. There's a lot of resources online that put out good information on our website as well. We disseminate articles written by licensed clinicians, and all this research is publicly available. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in that kind of arena of it to do their own research and find those tactics maybe on their own and then implement them, give it a try in your own life.
Pervis, do you have any comments about that?
Yeah, I just to echo what Brandon just said, I think it just really affirms the need and necessity for the work that we all do, right? The articles that are disseminated, they definitely affirm and confirm why we got into this in the first place. And so like that data is very, very important and vital. And it helps me, it also opens up spaces for organizations who might not have considered working with mental health professionals. Now they want to work with them because of the articles that are disseminating this information. So it just affirms and confirms why we do the work that we do.
Absolutely. And I would say like when you're looking at research, also look at the quality of the study done. And so look to experts like these people on the panel who are actually reading the research and disseminating it and figuring out if it is valid and all that good stuff. Okay, one more. So how do you deal with your family not understanding your mental health issues? Pervis, do you want to start with this one?
Oh, wow. That you had to have a little bit of grace. My mother, for me personally, my mother, she was ashamed that I told people that I was molested growing up or that I was bullied. But I had to have empathy and understood where she grew up. She grew up in the South, segregation. She grew up in a whole different time where her mindset was just about surviving, right? And my mindset is about thriving and being whole. And so I had to have grace and compassion for where she's coming from in order to be able to not allow it to turn into bitterness or anger or resentment towards her. I had to get to a space of compassion for her, right? In order to make peace with that. So my advice would be to try to empathize with where they're coming from. It could have nothing to do with you. My mother thought because I was molested that somehow made her a bad parent. And that's not what the situation was. It's just something that happened, right? It doesn't take away from her parenting skills. She's an amazing mom. And so it took for me to have compassion for family members who didn't understand what I was going through.
Right. Okay, Raquel, quickly, we're almost out of time.
Yeah, said it perfectly. And I think that's a really hard thing to go through. Grace, compassion, empathy is so important. And what I will say is, hopefully you don't feel discouraged still seeking out your own mental health help from family members who might not understand, but just talking them through, I think is and getting to a place where they can see your side of it. But yeah, what purpose? Grace, empathy.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Everyone stay well.